Hi, Tracy from Kazadans Equestrian and welcome to this week's video. This week we're looking in general at the horse's muscle and development of muscle. Included in this is some very important information on vitamin E and why this may benefit your horse, so that you do get notified when I release new videos, which generally is weekly, and these subscriptions and the notifications are actually very supportive for me, being able to keep the channel alive. So one of the common complaints, questions I get from horse owners and my clients is that my horse isn't building muscle, or my horse is losing muscle. Quite often this is despite feeling like you're doing the correct riding, the correct exercises, and also feeding an amount of food that the horse should be gaining muscle from. So I'm going to have a look at how to assess those muscles and some of the common reasons that this could possibly be occurring, and again touch on vitamin E and why this can be very essential in these cases. So one of the first things to look for is symmetry on your horse. A really great thing to do is to stand your horse up as square as you possibly can, and even take photos either side, front and back, and compare the musculature of the horse. Is the horse symmetrical? Are you seeing generalized muscle wastage or generalized lack of tone in that muscle, or is it in specific areas? If you're looking at a lack of muscle in a particular area, it simply may mean that you need to focus on strengthening that area. For example, if you've got a lack of stifle stabilization muscles and your horses are a little bit wobbly in your stifle, please have a look at my stifle videos for help on that. But that just may mean specific exercises for that area. Also, again, with the top line, if you're simply looking at over the spine not being well supported, then the top line muscle exercises could be great for that as well. But keep listening to see that you've got all of your bases covered as well. As your horse is standing up, what's the posture of your horse like? Is it standing very comfortably square and, in normal leg position, or is it slightly camped under? And by camped under, I mean, in particular, the back legs just sit a little bit further forward, and they're trying to support their weight a little bit more. Quite often a camped under horse can really signify a generalized muscle weakness, and quite often these horses also shift weight from leg to leg. So if they're shifting their weight from limb to limb or side to side while you're trying to get them to stand square, it could indicate a generalized muscle weakness for your horse. And while your horse is there, there's a couple of other things to watch for. Is there any muscle twitching? Not just, if a fly lands on them, but sometimes you can see a leg tremble or a particular muscle area twitching. This can indicate, I guess, a more specific area of problem. And the other thing you want to do is get your hands on your horse. Get to know what the musculature feels like. Just light touches or, a little bit firmer to feel how toned are these muscles. Are they floppy like fat? Are they toned? Is there any temperature or heat anywhere over your horse's body, which can indicate inflammation and maybe some kind of trauma to an area? And quite often if you poke in certain spots, you will be able to get an indication of pain from your horse as well. So it's a really good idea to keep an idea of how your horse behaves normally when you do this, so that when you do touch it and find a specific area of pain, that you actually notice it. So I'm going to move on from that though and talk about those horses that have generalized muscle weaknesses or just generally aren't building muscle the way you think they should. So number one, balance your horse's diet. You may think you have a good diet, but actually do some work into balancing it. An independent equine nutritionist or even feed companies will do a decent balance for you. If your horse's diet is not balanced, sometimes they simply don't have the ingredients they need for the muscle recipe. So they don't have what they need to build the muscle. And there are two very important things to build muscle. One is enough energy. So they need to be fed enough energy for their body to be able to metabolize into their movement and exercises. The next thing they need is the correct quantity of protein in the diet. Now, if a horse has enough protein but not enough energy, it will not build muscle. If a horse has enough energy but not enough protein in its diet, then it still will not build enough strong muscle. Not only that, the protein source needs to be a good quality protein source. So amino acids are the building blocks of muscle. So as an example, if you look at Lego pieces, and I want you to build me a tower of red, blue, green and yellow, and you have an amount of red, green, blue and yellow Lego blocks in front of you, if I only provide you with 6 yellows, then you can only build 6 of those towers, and it doesn't matter how many of the other colours are left in your Lego pile. So building muscle is like this. We need an amino acid profile that matches what the horse needs to produce its muscles. So a good quality source of protein, not just any protein, is needed. Okay, so you've balanced your diet, you know you're getting protein, you know you're getting energy. Horse still isn't really developing this muscle, or they're getting tired after exercise, a little bit more fatigued. They don't seem to recover as well. The next thing I would be looking at is vitamin E. Now, vitamin E deficiency or not enough vitamin E is becoming more prevalent the less we have access to quality green pasture for our horses. So if your horse gets very little green grazing or very little quality forage, then it is quite likely they could do with a vitamin E supplement, especially if they're in work. A lack of vitamin E will cause muscle weakness, muscle atrophy, and at times, with particular disorders, it can actually cause permanent damage to the muscles in your horse. One of the reasons it's really important for horses to get additional vitamin E is that unlike the fat-soluble vitamins A, D and K, it is not stored in the liver. Now they can store some vitamin E, but they really do rely on a constant dietary supply of vitamin E in their diet. This is not a vitamin that a horse can make themselves, nor is it a vitamin that those wonderful microbes that make lots of vitamins in the stomach can do either. So the dietary supply is, like I said, very important. Vitamin E, again, is mostly available to the horse in green grass, green forage. So if your horse is not getting any of that, you may be more likely to see an issue with a vitamin E deficiency. As I mentioned earlier, posture of your horse can sometimes tell you that they have a generalized muscle weakness, and in this case, it is worthwhile giving vitamin E a try. If your horse is looking that little bit camped over, shifting weight, as I mentioned earlier, but also if you look at the muscle development and you see, you've seen horses that go quite slopey over those gluteal muscles, rather than the big rounded gluteal muscles, you get quite a slope from the top of the croup rather than that roundness. That sometimes too can indicate a generalized muscle weakness. Vitamin E is really important because it actually provides protection to the cell's membranes. It's an antioxidant, so it prevents the membranes of the cells being damaged by oxidative stress. You don't really need to understand all of that other than the fact that it is important, and it's more of a protective vitamin. Given that this is its role, in feeds, vitamin E gets oxidated itself and therefore is diminished quite readily in ready-made feeds and hay. So if you're reading the back of your packet or a hay analysis that has the vitamin E content, please understand that this is diminishing almost constantly. And if you're not storing in the ideal conditions, this even accelerates that more. So it's actually not unusual for a horse that isn't constantly on pasture to have a bit of a low vitamin E status. So what are the vitamin E requirements? If you're really suspect that listening to this, doing a little bit of research, that your horse may be really quite low in vitamin E, then you can boost that by quite a high dose for about a month. In this instance, you would use 10 international units. They're the units that vitamin E is measured in. So 10 international units per kilogram of body weight. And providing this for about a month, you should then be able to go on to other forms or a more maintenance dose. Maintenance requirements for horses are around 500 to 1,000, even 1,500 international units per day. There's quite a high level of tolerance for vitamin E, so it's unlikely you're going to overdose your horse on this. One of the other issues too with diet is if you're adding any oil to your horse's diet, which I also recommend in other videos, depending on the type of oil, if it's high in polyunsaturated fatty acids, so more your vegetable oils, corn oils, soybean oils, they can diminish the amount of vitamin E that is available to the horse in your feed as well. If your horse is in competition, particularly endurance, eventing, something that requires a lot of muscle effort over an exceeding amount of time, or also if you're noticing your horse fatiguing easily, even though you think their diet is balanced and okay, then what you can do is increase the dose, maybe 2 or 3 times even, for a few weeks leading up to your races or events. And the easiest and best way to supplement vitamin E that I have found is simply using the human vitamin E capsules. You can get these quite cheaply at chemists. Remember, don't store them for years because again, you'll reduce the vitamin E in them. But my horses, they're a little bit piggy, so I can chuck a couple of capsules in and they just eat them in their feed. If you've got a horse that's really fussy, you could take the capsules and put them in some warm water to dissolve, or even cut them and throw the whole lot in with the feed so that they do get the maximum amount of the oil inside the capsule, even if they spit the little capsule bits out. So if you're buying from a chemist, please have a look, make note of what international unit dosage is in per capsules, and that'll tell you roughly how many to put in your horse's feed. I hope this has been helpful. If you have found it helpful, please don't forget to comment on the video, like it, share it around so other people can see. This really does help me maintain this channel. And also, if you haven't yet, please subscribe, click on that notification bell, and that will simply let you know when I release my next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.